financial planner. Follow us on YouTube.
Hold on, the entire globalist economic system is about to come apart. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, we've been following the story with Debbie Wasserman Schultz with the Awans. This is the husband and wife that were working for Wasserman Schultz and many other staffers. And they tried to flee the country. I mean, they were brought up on conspiracy charges, bank fraud. And it looks like, and this is according to Congressman Trent Franks, that they might be making some type of deal where they might get immunity for everything. Now, this is very interesting. This might go deeper, and they might be maybe spilling the beans on someone else. And what we're seeing at this point is that there's a larger story here than meets the eye. And we understand that Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she was with the Capitol Police trying to get this laptop back. And she was pretty darn mean to the Capitol Police, basically berating him, saying, listen, you have no right to keep it, because she was very worried that they were going to look at this laptop. And we can see right now, this whole thing might be moving in a completely different direction, and they might have these Awans, these individuals, they might have them testify and maybe spill the beans on other individuals, and this is something we have to watch. Now, we know that Trump fired James Comey, and it looks like Comey is going to return to Capitol Hill and testify under oath again. Now, the question is, why? Well, it's been exposed that he exonerated Hillary Clinton months in advance of any investigation into her email server scandal, proving that the FBI investigation into this was a complete farce. We also understand that the White House, on this past Monday, accused James Comey of giving false testimony and suggested the Justice Department look at whether he perjured himself, and they want him to come back. Now, this is very interesting because, again, he had that memo that he never produced. He gave it to a friend. It was put out there. It was classified, and we can see that he is getting into trouble right now. And they want to see, did he perjure himself? What other information does he have? And we're going to have to watch and follow this to see where this goes, because what we're starting to hear and what we're starting to see is a lot of information is starting to come out, and these individuals are getting tripped up in what they said, and people are looking at this a lot closer now because they're losing control. The cabal is losing control in all of this, and a lot of this information is starting to come out. Now, we know the cabal has been controlling, like, the social media networks. They've been controlling the corporate media, and they came and they basically coined the phrase fake news, and they wanted everyone to believe that the alternative media and everything else that you heard was fake, and whatever they said was true. But that kind of backfired on them because Trump kept on calling them fake news, and the whole thing completely fell apart, and they stopped using the term fake news. And instead, they moved into using fact checkers to prove that they were right, that this is on the up and up. And Facebook did it, Google did it, Twitter was doing it. The corporate media would also go back and say, oh no, the fact checker said this. And what's very interesting about all of this is that a Yale University study has found that Facebook's anti-fake news strategy, or fact-checking stories, well, people aren't buying it. The research found tagging false news stories as, disputed by third-party fact checkers had a meager impact on whether readers perceived headlines to be true. Overall, the existence of disputed tags made under participants just 3.7% more likely to correctly judge headlines as false. Now, the researchers believe the sheer volume of information that floods the social media network makes it impossible for fact-checking groups like Facebook, that partnered with PolitiFact and FactCheck.org and Snopes, to scrutinize every story. And moreover, the existence of flags on some stories made individuals even more likely to believe any story that was not flagged. The team believe that the results show it's unclear whether Facebook efforts are actually working, because people now are looking at this saying, well, is this fake? Is this not fake? Let me just read it and make the decision on my own. And this is what people should do. They should look at the corporate media. They should look at the stories on social media. They should do their own research and say, okay, this is what's true. This is what isn't true. Because listen, the corporate media, they've been out there talking about Russian collusion. They've been talking about how Trump worked with Russia, and they were pretty positive, and it looked like this was absolutely true. There was no question about it, and they kept pushing this story, and the fact checkers were behind them, and it looked really good. And then all of a sudden, through Project Veritas, we understand that this was a complete lie, that there was nothing there. They were just pushing propaganda. So once again, when we look at this, we need to do our own research. We need to understand what's really going on and question what is going on, because a lot of times we don't question it. We just go along with it and we say, oh yeah, they must be right. And a lot of people throughout the United States, they do this. They look at the corporate media and they say, oh, that must be true because they're saying it. No, we need to question them. We need to put them on the spot and say, you know something, is this true or not? I've done some research. It isn't true. But they don't like to hear that, and a lot of times they remove the comments and they don't want people reporting on the comments. Now, out in Ukraine, we can see U.S. troops are currently taking part in a multinational military exercise in Ukraine. There's about 250 soldiers from the Oklahoma Army National Guard, 80 soldiers from California Army National Guard, and 45 airmen from the California Air National Guard, and they are joining in the exercises in Ukraine. And once again, the United States has been there training the Ukrainian armed forces, because what they really wanted to do, they wanted to have the year of the offensive. They wanted to go into southeastern part of Ukraine in Donbass, and they wanted to go into Crimea, and they wanted to take the entire country back. But it looks like this isn't happening, and really at this point, Putin, Germany, France, they are really controlling the situation out in Ukraine, and the United States has, I should say the cabal, has pretty much lost it completely. Now, we can see that the United Nations, they have placed sanctions on North Korea. It looks like the United States has gotten their way. And once again, these sanctions aren't really going to do much at all. But Russia, they have backed the UN resolution on North Korea. And Russia was out there saying, when considering the UN Security Council resolution on North Korea, they looked at and they listened to other countries, and they agreed that North Korea continually testing their missiles, testing their nuclear program, this might be a problem in this area. Now remember, Russia and China, they want North Korea to stop what they're doing. They want the United States, South Korea to stop what they're doing, and they want both sides to come together and talk about it and talk about what is happening. We see out in Turkey, Turkey is moving away from NATO, moving away from the United States. They have signed a deal with Russia to buy the S-400 missile defense system in its first major weapons purchase from Russia. And they also gave a deposit, and we can see right now that they're moving away and they're purchasing weapons from Russia. There's a lot of countries that are doing this right now where they're moving towards Russia and China. We see that the Iraqi forces, they are out there now reporting that, yes, the U.S.-led coalition jets deliberately bombed our positions to halt our progress against the Islamic State. Now, we talked about this a long time ago, where we said the United States, the cabal, the deep state, they were in there and they were holding the Iraqi forces back. They were giving them false information, and they were protecting the paid mercenaries. Now the Iraqis are coming out and they're saying that, yes, this is absolutely true. We have the proof, and this is what was being done at this point. This is why we couldn't make any gains for the last couple of years, until all of a sudden Russia came into Syria. Things started to change. Trump was elected, and then all of a sudden they backed off, they supported us, and we were able to make gains and get rid of the Islamic State. So we can see there are changes going on. And we can see right now the cabal, well, they are completely finished. Right now, the Russian Defense Ministry said they have 85% of Syria, which is now liberated. So 85% is completely liberated. Russia is out there saying, listen, we will not stop until it's 100%. They said there's only 27,000 square kilometers of Syrian territory yet to be liberated, and they feel they can do this in a couple of months, because right now they have the Islamic State and the moderate rebels, Al-Qaeda, surrounded. Supplies are not coming in, so it's a matter of time. Now, we know that the cabal, they've been trying to weasel their way into Syria and Iraq to create this Kurdistan type of area, because they wanted the Kurds to have independence. And we can see already that the Kurdistan people, well, they were going to have a referendum. It was set for September 25th. And right now, Iraq is saying, listen, we're not having this referendum. It is rejected by the country's parliament, and we're going to stay as one country. There will be no independent area. Now, Syria is doing the same exact thing. The Kurds, which is being supported by the cabal, they wanted to split Syria, but we can see that Syria is going to use the same exact tactic, saying, listen, the parliament voted, there will be no referendum, and this is going to be one united country. So that whole entire plan to separate Syria, to separate Iraq, to separate the Middle East is completely falling apart. Now, add on top of that, Syria's government just signed a contract with the Iranian company on Tuesday, which is today, to import 5 gas-fired power plants to Aleppo. And they've also signed a contract to basically have a plant that which will provide 540 megawatts of electricity to Latakia. And this entire contract is worth around 130 million euros. And we could see at this point is that they're going to continually sign more and more of these contracts. And this is going to be a major problem. And what we're seeing right now is that this whole thing is coming to an end. Iraq is making deals with Iran. They're going to have the pipeline go through Iraq into Syria. Syria is working with Iran, Russia, and China. The cabal is pretty much done with right now. There's nothing left for them to do except with North Korea, because we see Venezuela already, they are moving away from the dollar. So regime change there, I don't think it's going to happen. I think things are going to start to fall apart. Now, what's very interesting is we know the cabal will not give up. They're going to fight till the very end. They never stop heading towards their goal. They regroup, they find a different way of getting there, and they keep trying until they can't do it anymore, until they're stopped somehow, some way. And what's very interesting right now is that the FBI has been briefing private sector companies on intelligence claiming to show that the cybersecurity company Kaspersky, which is from Russia, well, they are an unacceptable threat to national security, and they want private corporations to get rid of Kaspersky and sign with other vendors. And I believe what they're trying to do is they're trying to, hurt the Russian economy by doing this. And they're trying to make all the private corporations move away from Kaspersky. But what's very interesting about all of this is that earlier this year, a U.S. congressional panel asked federal government agencies to share documents on Kaspersky Lab because the firm's products could be used to carry out nefarious activities against the United States. Now, from all of that, there has been no proof, because the conclusion from their investigation shows that, the company has done absolutely nothing. The company is on the up and up, and they couldn't find any information or any evidence that this is true. But it looks like the FBI is pushing their agenda, which is very interesting at this point in time. Now, it looks like the White House, they are on lockdown for the second time in 2 days. There were these suspicious packages, and it's very interesting how it's around 9/11 to keep the scare factor up there. And one of them turned out to be like a yoga mat, and the other one, they don't even know what it is. And this was during 9/11. Trump and the First Lady weren't even on the grounds, but it looks like this is being used to keep the scare factor up, and it was just very interesting how it was done during the period of 9/11. So when we look at everything that's been going on, what are we seeing? We're seeing that the globalist economic system, it is rapidly deteriorating and falling apart. The Middle East right now has fallen. We mentioned that yesterday. We see that Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Libya, and the rest of the countries, they are no longer taking orders from the cabal. They're moving away from the dollar. There's many countries moving away from the dollar. And again, this has been planned for a very long time, where all these countries would eventually move away from the dollar. Now, the globalists tried to keep everyone within the dollar, and what's happening right now is they're moving away from the dollar. And there's nothing they can do. What are they going to do? Go back into these countries? They can't do it. The armed forces of the United States, and this is the muscle that they use to keep the dollar in existence, they're exhausted. They can't operate anymore. The entire system is falling apart. Everything that they wanted to do, the TPP, the NAFTA, all of it is coming apart right now. And we're headed to a period of time where the system is going to crash. Everything is going to be moved out to the east. And the United States is going to be in a lot of trouble because we are not working with countries for trade right now. We don't really produce that much. I mean, we have the automobile industry, but a lot of the manufacturing is very small compared to what China and other countries have. They're working with other countries to establish trade, and the United States, once the reserve currency of the world disappears, it's going to be very difficult to survive. And once the reserve currency of the world ceases to exist, guess what? Our way of lives, well, it's going to be devalued. It's going to be a lot worse than it is right now. And the life that we're living is not going to be the same anymore. And we're headed in this direction. And this is why everyone needs to be ready and prepared for this transition. Things are going to change very rapidly. Maybe one day things will improve. We'll have to join the Belt and Road, the trading system. We'll have to join all of this because it will cease to exist here in the United States. This is why they've been duplicating it out in the East. So it's just a matter of time. Everything is already in motion. So what we're seeing, and this is what everyone needs to realize, is that through all the reports that we've been talking about and everything that we've been looking at, this happens very, very slowly. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens very slowly, very methodically, without people realizing it's happening. This is how the central bankers work. Now, I'm not saying that Russia and China, this is going to be a good thing, because I think, and what I've been looking at, is that the central bankers, they're just setting up shop someplace else, because they know the system here is dead. Now they have to move away. This is what they do. This is why they've been jumping from country to country. They don't have an allegiance to a country or to a people. Their allegiance is to themselves. Their allegiance is to debt. And it looks like they're preparing and getting ready to set up shop someplace else. This is why they've been doing it very slowly. This is why they've been bringing China in. This is why the Fed and the people here in the United States, part of the cabal, that's why they don't like China, because they're taking their system away from them. They depended on this system because it brought them a lot of wealth. They were able to use the control of the dollar to bully nations. When this comes to an end, they will no longer have power. Their wealth will discontinue. And this is what they're afraid of. This is why they'll start a war. This is why they'll provoke another country and try to get us into war, to maintain their system. And this is what they've been trying to do all along. But we can see at this point that everything is rapidly falling apart. And right now, it is accelerating. And we can see that everything is moving from the west to the east.